Hi, I'm Tiffany López. I'm Dean of the Claire Trevor School of the Arts here at the University of California, Irvine. I'm incredibly excited to be here today with Sara Guerrero, director of The Sweetheart Deal by Diane Rodriguez, coming soon to the Robert Cohen Theatre, April 29th through May 7th. It's a great honor, privilege, and excitement to be here with Sara Guerrero. We have a long-standing relationship working in Southern California and nationally in Latinx theater arts. We are both founding members of the Latinx Theater Alliance of Los Angeles, also both involved in the Latinx Theater Commons, which is a national theater organization to open doors and support artists. And then through Sara's work as founding artistic director of Breath of Fire Latina Theater Ensemble. So it's a great excitement to be here with Sara. Tell us a little bit about the Sweetheart Deal, about the content of the play.
Well, what's interesting is this particular story, written by Diane Rodriguez, was inspired by actual events. So it's a story about a couple. In her own family, her aunt and uncle had decided, after watching the news of what was going on in the 1970s, the protest of the United Farm Workers and what Cesar Chavez was doing to raise the awareness and also bring equality to the farm workers. They were watching it on television and decided to uproot their lives and go and volunteer and not only work with UFW, but then ended up working with El Malcriado, the newspaper that was founded by Cesar Chavez in order to bring awareness on a national level to what was happening in the fields. So this story, again, goes back to this couple who leave their middle-class, comfortable lifestyle in San Jose and decide to join and return to actually Delano, California to make change. And through the story are the spouse of the couple, Mari, who is more hesitant in participating in this, eventually finds her voice, eventually understands the reasons as to why this is necessary. And it's through a series of events and activities that she ends up becoming more involved. She is impassioned. She's a driving force. And to Diane's credit, it's a way to also remind us of when you see something, to not just repost it, not to just reshare it, but that we need to be active and we need to make change. And what's also really lovely about this play, again, because of, I think Diane, our playwright, is very unique in this because of her relationship to the story. So not only do we have the part of the play is set in El Malcriado and really rooted in the volunteers, because you never see Cesar Chavez, you don't see the leaders, but you really look at the volunteers. And I think without the volunteers, as it's written in the script, no movement, no political movement has any, can ever be lifted. And so we focus on these people in this world. And it's also, there's two parts to this world. So we've got the play and then we've got the actos, which was inspired by Teatro Campesino. Now, Teatro Campesino, if you don't know, was formed in the mid-60s in relation to what was happening with the UFW, founded by Luis Valdez. Really, and it also, what's interesting about Teatro Campesino, it was a way to stage the stories, right? To share and inform the field workers who were just too busy. You know, they were migrating up and down the coast of California, and it was a way to entertain them, but also bring to light what was going on. And it was very, very commedia dell'arte. And Diane, growing up, watched Teatro Campesino and was also involved with Teatro Campesino for 11 years. And so the story we find ourselves learning about the Sweetheart Deal also through the actos. So there's these two worlds. We've got the play and we've got the actos. And at some point, the two sort of merge together. And I don't want to give away the ending, but again, like I said, our heroine finds her way, and it's through not just events, but some tragic events as well, and becomes one with this cause and with this fight.
Thank you so much for that. Tell us a little bit about why the play is so resonant for this particular moment. And I'm also really excited to hear you share a little bit about what excites you about doing it here at UCI and in Orange County.
Definitely. Well, you would think that a play like this would need to be relevant, but unfortunately it is. Fortunately and unfortunately. I think Dolores Huerta in her most recent documentary talked about how we don't have an understanding of who brings the food to our table, those who labor in the fields. And Diane Rodriguez very much also includes that in her own play, but that we take for granted what is brought to our plates, and understanding what we still need to do and what we still need to provide for those who are working in the fields. Those are jobs that generally nobody wants, and it's on the backs of immigrants that we are able to eat. It is at the sacrifice of them that we can buy things. We worry about the price of eggs. We worry about the price of milk. But do we know where this is coming from and who is having to be sacrificed at, us trying to save money as well? Not to say that we, it's been complicated, especially coming out of this pandemic. But I think there's also a need and an understanding that this is still a fight for many.
And what excites you about directing this play for a college audience here at the university campus, and then the relationship our drama department has with the community that you've played such a critical role in as an arts leader?
There are so many threads. I mean, when you talk about this, and I know it's like, where do I start? So the fact that having theater and stories being told like this, and even I have a historical connection, like a familial historical connection, to see your community stage. I have family that had worked in the fields, that had witnessed things and would not talk about, and then, I had family who were not necessarily in supportive of Chavez because of their work, so I think as my own culture, I come from a Mexican American Chicana background, we're not a monolith, there are so many complicated layers, but again, to see it staged, a little bit of your history, our history, is exciting in my Orange County community. I've been a part of the Orange County performing arts community for well over, I want to say 25 plus years. But also, I've also had I've had a long ongoing relationship with students here at UCI. I want to say as early as 2006. And it was through Lonnie Alcaraz, your professor here in the department as well. And I had worked with many of their design students, the production students, with the work that I do with Breath of Fire Latina Theater Ensemble, which you've also been a part of at some point. And so to be here in a more formal way, and because I know I still have many relationships with the students that have come out of this program, and I continue to work with not just UCI, but there's a lot of universities that I continue to work with and do this sort of work. And it excites me because I feel like there are more opportunities, not even just for me, but for the students, and to build these relationships, to see the legacy, to continue, and to know, a lot of the students, again, that I've worked with have gone off to have incredible paths and journey that continue today. And then, of course, going back to the story and what it means to my family, I have a number of aunts and uncles, tios and tias, who are alum. And were very much involved in the Chicano movement. Like, my uncle was a muralist in the Chicano movement, and he was one of the first to get his MFA as a Chicano here. My tío is a retired judge who also received his undergrad here. My tía, who is retired but is an organizer for senior citizens. What they bestowed to me, what I saw in them, how they volunteered, how they got involved, how they shared stories. I feel connected, even though I didn't attend UCI, but I feel like it's like a cousin, we're always with relatives, like a distant cousin of some sort. and then of course, like being able to work, to also bring in some of the things that my relationships through Breath of Fire as well in regards to doing the work.
One of the things that makes me so excited about your being here directing the Sweetheart deal is the long-standing connection that you've had working with Diane Rodriguez through your work in Southern California, in the Los Angeles area, in Orange County, and we've worked together with Diane, part of our work in Los Angeles with the Latinx Theater Alliance of Los Angeles, but also as part of the Latinx Theater Commons. And I'd love to hear you share a little bit about the nexus of working with Diane and having, she passed away several years ago. We lost such a giant in our theater community, and I'm just wanting to hear your thoughts about doing the work now in this time after she's passed, and also reflecting on just the impact that she had for us and on our community, and I know for you personally.
I mean, those are some really big shoes to fill. It's unfortunate we no longer have Rodriguez. I was always an admirer. Here I am in Orange County, and I know that like her work in her life was not just in Los Angeles, but she was on a national level. Like, to have a little bit of Diane's time was a gift. And as she would see me, doing the work that I did, she reached out to me, offering me some really great advice, trying to navigate these waters, as a woman of color, a woman in the theater world, that isn't necessarily the representation is it's why Breath of Fire was formed. It's why we have the Latinx Theater Commons and the Latinx Theater Alliance, because we're really pushing for representation. And I know Diana didn't necessarily just focus on the Latinx. I mean, she was again trying to really lift many who are often left out, and trying to also change the philanthropic landscape as well. And I'm sure she had met many obstacles, and I know there's been a lot of people that she has touched in her life that and she was always one to lift others. She was, having her at the room on a table, like such a smart mind, really would raise really good questions, to what you were doing or what the work that needed to be done. And I always felt like, that what she demonstrated was something that we all needed to demonstrate as well. Like, there is no room there's no energy to put anybody else down, to not be present and lift those up, to sit in bitterness or jadedness, just seem to not to say that we don't go through those things, but it was really about focusing on the work and how do we do this? How do we lift others? And I think she really, demonstrated so exemplary,
I think it's so beautiful to look at the resonances between Diane's personal history and her writing of this play. That her telling the story about her family making the decision they wanted to step into service in their community at the height of the Great Boycott and join in service with El Malcriado, and then thinking about what you just shared with us about your family history and stepping into service. And certainly part of your leadership role in the community is very much a service role to calling people into service by raising awareness through theater, having people figure out and discover what the next path is that they want to step on in serving their community. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about those connections, the personal connections with Diane's story, and how theater is a form of opening us into a path of social awareness, but also discovering the importance of serving our community. It's interesting. Like I went into theater because I wanted to focus on being an actor. And, as much as I pursued it,
what became very clear to me is the obstacles. And so, like, how do you do the work and not, and how do you try to overcome these obstacles? It really shifted me into theater, into a theater for social justice work. It wasn't something I was looking to do, but because I was lack of representation, and what was available was very stereotypical, often not written by the community that they were writing about. And for me, it again, I shifted into working with communities who were dealing with much bigger issues of discrimination, who really were looking to make change because of the safety of their children, the safety of themselves, wanting to also change hearts and minds of your elected officials. So, spent some time working with communities to write stories with other organizations. And then eventually, like Diane, who had been a part of Teatro Campesino, doing this work, not only, going from acting to writing, to becoming an arts administrator, to, joining larger organizations on a national level, trying to make change. I went from an actor to a writer to a producer to finding my own theater company. And I'm obviously very much more microscopic in relation to what Diane has done, but in my own community, I wanted a space for someone like myself. And so Breath of Fire was formed, and we were producing work that told stories that otherwise would not have been told, and we continued to do the work. And it is challenging to run a small nonprofit, a nonprofit of, for BIPOC communities. And I'm part of the Artistic Directors Alliance of Color of the Greater Los Angeles. And so together we have, we've been meeting since the pandemic, and we're working with Olga Garay English to really change the philanthropic landscape for small nonprofits of color. Breath of Fire is the only BIPOC Latina organization in Orange County. So that's why we're called the Greater Los Angeles, ADCA. And so it's really about, looking at what is missing and what we need to raise awareness for. And so through Breath of Fire, we were challenged with staying open. Just the idea of running an organization, nonprofit, comes with its many obstacles. And so if there was a moment where we went on a hiatus and we let go of our space, and there was uncertainty that we would come back, and it was also a time that I then shifted into working with larger theater organizations to do work about telling the stories of other communities, specifically also my own community in Santana, the Latinx community. And this was a beautiful project, 2 years. I mean, we involved over thousands of people from our own community, but when it came time to continue, there was no funding. And the organization, the larger organization, performing arts organization, decided to go in another direction. And so here I was sitting with my community who I had been engaging with for 2 years, and they were like, wait a minute, we're not done yet. And so, this idea or this desire, again, what is missing, what needs to be done, Breath of Fire reemerged, but really not so much to perform and present full bodies of work, but really be an incubator for voices that have been historically excluded from the stage through our own mission for supporting and enriching the lives of Latinas in the performing arts, but then to also, shift to this focus of we need to incubate the ability to storytell. And really just be a space for people who have no experience or have experience. Don't turn away no one gets turned away for lack of experience. And we offered the programming free. We had absolutely no budget. I reached out to writers and artists that I had worked with, produced, and everyone agreed. And so it was exciting, and to do this work and to give and to have a place for people to write and to hear their stories, no matter what their background was, within the work that we were doing was phenomenal. And as a result, we then gained residency with Cal State Fullerton's Grand Central Arts Center. We have a home in downtown Santa Ana where we continue to offer programming in storytelling through professional artists in our community. And again, to our community at no cost. And so like, I feel like with thinking about why Diana wrote her story and why she needed to tell this story and what that sort of represents about community coming together to raise an awareness, to create a platform for the voiceless is very much in still the work I do. I come to work with each university, with each students, and I always hope to bring in like a specialist. So early on, Dawn Hill, your chair of the department, and I spoke about like, well, what is the opportunity? What can we do, that can be a part of this process for our students? And so one of the things was, can we bring in Teatro Campesino? And we had Laquín Valdez come and spend a wonderful afternoon with us. And not only that, so as an educator, as a teaching artist, but also just as somebody who's in the community, because you always have to be learning, there's a lot of work still to be done. And it's always kind of looking at what you know as an educator or as an artist, what you bring to the table, and this was probably a very condensed workshop, and how fulfilling that was in the under the 2 hours that we had with them, and to watch it empower these students who also don't necessarily see themselves on stage and are in this play of the history that they are connected to do a form of theater that is connected to them in a historical way, and then to just play, and more importantly, play. And for me, even now, you can feel my energy, I'm bouncing about it. And I just thinking about the legacy of Diane Rodriguez, the UFW, Chavez, Huerta, Valdez, Teatro Campesino, what that sort of means, all these threads that keep connecting us here, and thinking about even the fields here, the land that I think we're sitting on, which was a Hashiman and Tangva, but, the fields where the celery was grown, we're not too far from that. And that was one of the first jobs my grandfather had when they left Texas to here. And he was like, I don't like this work, and found his work actually, I think he ended up working at the Newport Country Club.
I love hearing you share about that, and we're doubly excited in this month of May because Luis Valdez will be coming to be in conversation with Dr. Jorge Huerta, founder of the field of Chicano theater studies, and
right.
Luis Valdez, founder of El Teatro Campesino, right. the Farm Workers Theater. They'll be here as part of an Illuminations event in which I'll be interviewing both of them on May 24th. So
I'm going to be there.
Super excited to share about that, and that it's dovetailing with the Sweetheart deal,
right.
so that our audiences can see how those works are in conversation. Valdez was very famous for not only El Teatro Campesino, mm-hmm. but the philosophy behind it, thinking about the en la quech, mi otro yo, that our theater mirrors circumstances.
You are my other self.
You are my other self. And then very influenced by Bertolt Brecht, and
mm-hmm.
thinking about the power of theater to mirror circumstances, but also emotionally connect with audiences, to have them see the world they live in anew, mm-hmm. to be inspired from theater to go and more deeply respond in community to move forward change. Mm-hmm. I'd love, and that is the work of Breath of Fire, your theater company that you founded in connection with Valdez. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the connections between our artistic work and the connections that here between the universities, UCI, mm-hmm. your theater company, but we're also on the board of Arts OC together, really thinking about the synergies between the university and the community. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about the role of theater within all of that, mm-hmm. but this greater work of being inspired
Yeah.
to see ourselves in one another.
Right. I feel like theater can be a great amoeba of sorts. Like it could be sort of a place where things sort of starts. There's so much more to theater, and the way I've sort of approached it, because it always felt like theater always felt like home to me, in a way that can be. We sit at the table, we gather, we talk, we look at the possibilities, we play, we exchange ideas, and I feel like it's a great way to continue to demonstrate, manifest, and expand relationships. I think a lot of the relationships that I have been able to engage with or develop is because of theater. It has been my work in theater, or the training that I've had in theater, that has allowed me to look at the possibilities. And I think it's because we're problem solvers. We've had to, as a director, sometimes things don't go one way, so I've got to make another choice, and in the next 5 minutes, there's other choices. And I think about the work that we do with Arts OC, the work that you are here to do with UCI. And I mean, there's the community here on the campus, and then there's the surrounding community. And I think the surrounding community, which would be something like Breath of Fire, is a great way to I think it's the questions are, how does today work? What is the opportunity with this particular production? And the work from that, I think, is where I think a lot of us sit. I feel like when I sit with the board, or even at any table, I just feel like it's this, when somebody asks a question, or it's like, oh, I know so-and-so, let me connect you to this person, and I feel like that is always a given in these rooms. And, but I think it's like when you have a really great, tool or something that you've exercised, it becomes some sort of methodology. And I think that it's really maybe naming these things that we are creating, so that then there's a place to continue to develop and share. And we work with high school students in our community. And so anytime I'm working on a show locally, I always make sure to invite the students. And so the students in Santa Ana that we work with are going to be in attendance. And a lot of these students are already utilizing theater, or activated in theater. So it's and some of them are seeing themselves, whether or not they decide to pursue a career in theater, but I think it really allows them to make that decision. Here they come to the campus, they're looking at students that may be their representation, and that they could potentially see themselves here. If not here, I mean, just that the idea that they too can pursue a career in this if they so want.
What do you want audiences to take away from the experience of this play?
I hope that they have fun, that they really come here to be entertained, but secretly that they're also thinking about what is going on, what this represents, that the conversations that come about it is yeah, these things are still happening, that you can, and I think in some way, I secretly hope that people learn, but I can't force anybody to learn, and no one really wants to be forced to learn. And I think it's through laughter, through smiles, through sadness, that's when we connect. And I hope that they are enjoying the show, that they take it in, and that maybe somewhere somebody wants to get involved, secretly, but that also wants more work like this presented on stage.
So one of the wonderful things about Diane Rodriguez was her eye for set design and style, and certainly in this play set in the 70s, really thinking about the vibe of the moment, the cultural iconography of the moment, and coming out of the Chicano community. I'd love to just quick pick, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite fashion moment in the play?
Okay, so one of the songs that surprisingly has been revisiting some covers by Irma Franklin, and "Come On Baby Light My Fire," who wasn't the one who popularized it, but she's this amazing Black artist, singer, and hearing that song has been kind of like my personal go-to. Come on, baby, light my fire of that time. And then, of course, like the great Sara Guerrero, El Chicano. You know, those are the two songs that have been sort of been popcorning for me in this world. And then to also share this music with the students has been really, really exciting.
Well, that leads to my last question. We're always transformed and grow by every project that we're on. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about working with the theater artists in the drama department here at UCI. How do you feel they most inspired by your work with theater artists here?
Oh, you know what? So last night was, I think we're going into our third week, and I feel like we've all felt so boundless. You know, they are incredible. I mean, these are some amazing students. Their opportunity, I said their desire, like, is just it's so present, and not just our actors, but the designers. Like having these conversations with them. Some of them, I think this is their first main stage production. And really giving them the grace and the autonomy to just really imagine, like, do what you feel is use those skills, you know, rise to the occasion. And really they do. I don't have to do much, but just give them the space and the grace. And they are amazing. They are also amazing. I'm still kind of bouncing from last night. We had a lot of, it was intense. We officially blocked the whole show, and just to see them like excited, you know, a little over, you know, maybe a little exhausted, but they are so in it. And this is and they're just at the beginning, you know, like you see, there's so many students again that I've engaged with that I've seen at this level, you know, at this time, coming from this program. And then just to know that what has happened for some and what could happen for them is it inspires me. And then also just to be, to have that trust, to be allowed to be with them and learn from them as well is just as important as it's an incredible exchange. It really, really is.
Well, we're so excited about the work. It's a great point of honor and impact to have you here as a director with us, Sara Guerrero, and also as founding artistic director of Breath of Fire Latina Theater Ensemble. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very excited to see the work, and thank you for our interview today.
Thank you, Tiffany. I greatly appreciate it.